Good morning. I want to read a story to you that was written by our primary students on World Book Day. It was a story chain, which means that it started at nursery and they all wrote a little bit and then it continued all the way up to year 6. The idea was given to us by our principal, Mr. Hector MacDonald, who spoke to the children about the ESK dragon, and they were interviewed him and the story started to come to life. Each year group wrote a little bit and then passed it to the next year group, and the story eventually came to fruition. So I'm going to read the story to you. It starts with nursery and finishes with year 6. I hope you enjoy it. It's an amazing accomplishment by our amazing students. Once upon a time there was a little dragon who always flew early in the mornings. The dragon was lonely and had hurt his knee. The dragon had met a princess in a castle who had sweeties every day. The dragon's name was Cedric Smokeball, and he was green and yellow but turned red when he was hungry. One day Cedric the Dragon and the Princess Alicia, went on an adventure to a magical forest. They sat down eating lots of sweets, but then it got dark and they couldn't find their way home. They were just getting worried when they came across an enormous firefly that led them to his home. His home was a beautiful tree house that lit up the entire forest like thousands of stars in the night. As Cedric and Alicia looked at the tiny door, they stood wondering how they would get in. Suddenly, Cedric saw a small potion in a bottle which said, "Drink me." Curious and excited, Cedric carefully picked up the tiny bottle and took a small sip, instantly shrinking down to the size of a mouse. Alicia hesitated for a moment, then took a sip too, shrinking right beside him. Now they were both small enough to fit through the door. They stepped inside, eager to discover what lay beyond. Suddenly, a silly-looking ogre with black spots and green slimy skin stood staring at them. Cedric and Alicia were terrified. Their bodies started to shiver and shake. Before they could move, the silly-looking ogre chuckled, with his round belly wobbling like jelly. "Oh, don't be scared," he said. "I'm Oliver the ogre, and I only eat sticky toffee pudding, not visitors." Cedric and Alicia were amazed at how kind and generous the ogre was, and replied excitedly, "Of course." Carefully they climbed up the treehouse, not breaking anything, and sat down, eating all the candy and the sticky toffee pudding. They sighed with relief, and they had so many questions to ask. "Where do you find your supply of sticky toffee pudding? Can we have some?" Oliver the ogre grinned and pointed to a hidden cupboard carved into the tree trunk. "I make it myself using a secret recipe passed down from my great-great-grand ogre," he said proudly. They entered the cupboard and suddenly fell into a mysterious dark room underneath the tree. Oliver shouted, "Wait! I know how to get out of here." He sprinted to the old wooden door covered with spiders' webs. Cedric was flabbergasted and terrified, but Alicia couldn't follow because Oliver had run too fast, and while she was running as fast as light, she broke her ankle. Crack! Cedric stopped in his tracks and turned around to find Alicia crying in agony. He didn't hesitate to run back to his friend. He had to help. He had to act fast. He called out to the ogre, "Oliver, Alicia is badly injured. We need to help her. Oliver, where are you? Oliver!" screamed Cedric, but Oliver was nowhere to be seen. It was up to Cedric now to help his friend. "Alicia, hang in there, my dear friend. I will help you. I will get us both out of here." Cedric carefully picked up Alicia with his long, sharp talons and placed her gently onto his back. Alicia squealed in pain but knew her friend was only trying to help her. "Hold on tight, my friend. I will find a way out for us, a place of safety where someone can treat your injury." Cedric flew up into the bright blue sky. As they flew into the fluffy clouds, Cedric was looking for a comfortable place where Alicia could get some help. But in the distance, Cedric could only see an abandoned hut in a great, dark, scary forest. The hut looked old and rotting. Cedric felt worried and nervous about what was inside, but he didn't have a choice. Alicia needed help, and she needed it now. Cedric landed in front of a creepy hut, and the only living thing that he could see was a black cat with bright yellow eyes sitting by the door. Cedric called out nervously, "Is anybody in there?" No one answered. Suddenly, a bright light blinded Alicia and Cedric. When they could see again, there was no cat by the door, but a tall lady with green skin. She had a tall purple pointy hat on her head, a shabby black dress, and a crooked broomstick that was similar to her crooked nose. As she walked out of the door onto the moss green forest floor, she asked Cedric and Alicia, "Would you like some cookies?" in a friendly voice. Cedric and Alicia gladly accepted the cookies, and they bit into them. With each bite, they were healed more and more, and they gave them strength. All of a sudden, Alicia realised that her ankle did not hurt anymore. "I feel so much better. Thank you," Alicia exclaimed. They chatted for a while and explained to the kind witch that they were lost, and the witch replied, "I will send you on a quest to find your way home." Out of nowhere, the mysterious witch threw a magical metal spinning top, and suddenly a blue galaxy-coloured portal appeared and engulfed them and transported them back to the ESK library. All of a sudden, Cedric saw a strange woman giving out books to children. Cedric and Alicia went to the woman and realised that she looked familiar. It was Miss Hundair, and they went to her and said, "Hello." Miss Hundair asked, "Where have you come from?" Cedric said, "We've just arrived in a magical portal." Cedric looked at the glass of the ICT room and said, "What's that?" Miss Hundair said, "That's a special mirror." Cedric and Alicia went closer to the mirror, and as Cedric got closer, he saw the reflection of Alicia. But it wasn't the kind of thing you would normally see in a mirror. Instead, where Alicia's reflection should have been, there was a creature that Cedric did not recognise. Before his very eyes stood a golden, fiery phoenix. Cedric screamed, "Ah!" Smoke shot out of his ears. As he stood looking at Alicia in amazement and shock, little did Cedric know that Alicia glanced into the mirror. She would begin unravelling her darkest secret, that she was in fact a phoenix. Before Cedric could find out what had happened to his friend the princess, he heard the rumblings of the secondary students who were heading towards the library. "They mustn't see us," cried Cedric in panic. The problem was that when dragons become stressed, they accidentally breathe out fire. The flames landed on one of Miss Hundair's copies of the Gruffalo. Luckily, the school sprinkler system quickly activated and put out the fire. Miss Hundair remained cool as a cucumber and declared, "I have an idea. Quick, follow me." She led them swiftly to her office and pushed a creaky bookshelf at the back of the room. It opened. As it swung open, it revealed a dark space. It looked like a cave. A couple of small ancient torches appeared in the dark and lit the huge cave and the tunnel in the distance. All these caves were under the school. When they walked into the cave, there was a moment of silence. Only the sound of a quiet door opening could be heard. It was secondary, going into the library above them. Alicia turned to Cedric and asked, "What is this place?" Cedric replied quietly, "It's my home." He was still wondering about what he had seen in the mirror and thinking how he could ask his friend what it was. As Cedric shows Alicia around the cave, he started to feel as though there was something wrong. The atmosphere was off. It was cold as ice, and there was a lingering smell of blood in the air. His scales were prickling, and he swore he could hear the faint cries of the wind. Was this really ESK? The more they explored, the more haunted the place felt. In fact, the more that Cedric thought about it, the more he began to question the portal and that Alicia had come through. Had the witch betrayed them? Was this an alternative reality? Was this all upside down? Suddenly, a lifeless creature emerged from the gloom and the temperature plummeted even further. Cedric and Alicia froze in terror. The creatures loomed closer, their hollow eyes glowing with an eerie, ghostly light. Cedric's breath came out in short bursts, small wisps of smoke curling from his nostrils. Alicia clenched her fists, feeling the fire within her stir. But something about this place had weakened her. The usual warmth that burned in her veins felt distant, like a dying fire struggling against the cold. One of the creatures let out a "sis." It sounded like a voice. No, many voices overlapping. "Do you not belong here?" Cedric's tail lashed anxiously. "Who are you? What is this place?" he asked Alicia. "They have come from me, as I am the only one left of my kind." Her voice barely now a whisper. "It's time I tell you the truth about my past." Cedric interrupted. "That's all very well and good, but do you mind waiting until we survive?" He grabbed Alicia's by the hand and flew upwards and upwards as far as he could fly. Where did those shadows come from, he asked himself. What did they want from Alicia? Would we ever escape? Everything was happening so fast. "Quickly, up here!" a voice shouted in the darkness. Suddenly, a trap door opened near the bookcase, and Miss Hunde's sweet face beckoned them towards her impatiently. "I'm so glad I found you, just in the nick of time." An eerie grin spread across Miss Hunde's face like the roots of a tree, digging ever deeper. However, Cedric and Alicia were too relieved to notice. They made their way back to Miss Hunde's office in the ESK library with haste. Students were filling the area, ready to return their books. They were so busy they didn't even notice the dragon and the princess hiding. Miss Hunde quickly slammed the shutters and locked the door. "I'm surprised you managed to escape, my shadow minions. Now it's time for a real challenge." Dun, dun, dun. Read more at next year's Story Chain. The End.